Hi guys, this is Erica Weston with Fox Sports Midwest, and you're listening to my favorite St. Louis Blues hockey podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio.
Welcome to Season 8, Episode 48 of Let's Go Blues Radio, the original St. Louis Blues hockey podcast. We're broadcasting live on Tuesday, January 14th, 2020. This is franchise episode number 234 all-time. Your hosts tonight are yours truly, Kurt Price, Bill Day, and Jeff Ponder. And for your listening pleasure, for the next little while, we'll be talking Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues hockey. To interact with the show on social media, you can follow the show on Twitter at LGB Radio. My handle is at Kurt Price. Bill's is at Billy Blue Note. And Jeff's is at jponder94. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, and of course our YouTube channel, where the show is broadcast live. Don't forget to check out and like and subscribe, so you'll get notifications when we do go live each week. For those of you watching live show right now on YouTube, you can comment in the live chat on my left, which would be your right. The website is letsgoblues.com, where you can listen to or watch past episodes, browse the fan discussion forum, as well as get some cool St. Louis Blues themed t-shirts, mugs, and stickers that helps support the show. So if you enjoy the show, we ask that you wouldn't mind leaving us a shiny, happy review on iTunes, maybe buy a sticker or whatever. All proceeds do go back into the show. So we had some downtime with our website, so it's fine. Did you guys see it was back up today? Finally, about 2 hours ago. It was down for 5 days. So anybody who tried
Great
to visit,
work, Kurt.
I did nothing. Everybody was. It was just a 5 days of excuses from the server admins. So we're back up and running.
So it was not Kurt's fault. For everybody that's on Twitter blaming Kurt,
no, it was your fault.
Typically his fault, but not this time. Yeah, we say you did say that it was my fault.
You know what? It was not your fault. The thing is that it was you knocked over the first domino. You caused me to go in and mess with things, and then it kind of went south.
I asked for him to help me reset my password
because
and all of a sudden somehow that turned into a thing.
Yeah. Well. Anyway, it is what it is.
I typically don't start the show like this, boys, but I want to say we got a pretty awesome comment here right at the top in our YouTube chat. Jimmy Anderson says, "Good evening, fellas. We are so damn good right now. Has there ever been a better time to be a Blues fan?"
We're going to talk about that.
Question.
We're going to talk about that exact topic.
We will. Mm-hmm.
We have a special guest this evening on Let's Go Blues Radio, Mr. Jeremy Rutherford, who writes for The Athletic. Welcome to the show, Jeremy. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you guys. And now I have an answer to my question that I've been wondering for months.
What's that?
Which is?
I asked Erica Weston if she would do a short video and say that We Went Blues is her favorite podcast, and she said she couldn't. And I asked her why she couldn't do that, and she couldn't give me an answer. So now I know.
There you go. We got to her first. Way to go, boys.
I love it.
Jeremy, it's funny because we were talking about whether we should bring you on once we're live or bring you on before, and I said, Kurt, I want to bring him on before the show starts because I want to make sure he sees that opening.
Yeah. That's a great open. That's good, but I'm going to have to give her some trouble.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, thanks for having me, guys. This is great.
Of course. And we at the top here, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't let you plug your podcast. You mentioned the title, We Went Blues. Go ahead. What are people listening to if they tune into We Went Blues?
Oh, a bunch of garbage, really.
That's what this show is.
We've already got that market cornered.
Do you? Yeah. No, it's just a sports writer talking about eating a bunch of bad meals on the road and Barrett Jackman telling everybody how good he was.
Do you guys talk about how you like to style your hair?
Yeah, both of us, great hair. That's a good point. We're trying to get some hair product endorsements.
You can get. I see logo opportunities with the two heads.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, put something right here. Yeah, give
Sure.
like an ad right here. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Little tattoo.
You know, Kurt, next time he comes on, you need to work on getting like a logo to like go right on top of where his head is. Let's Go Blues Radio.
I like it. I can make that happen.
Yeah, get a logo, and I'll do a David Solomon and stand in the back of the interview so everybody can see it on Fox Sports Midwest. So.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Well, we're here for a reason, obviously, and that's because for those of you that subscribe to The Athletic or maybe follow one of us or follow Jeremy himself on Twitter, which, by the way, you could do at JP Rutherford. There was a great article that came out the last couple days. I think it was yesterday was when this one came out. Jeremy actually sat down with former Blues head coach Mike Yeo, and this was the first time he's ever really talked in public and especially interviewed about him being let go by the Blues over a year ago. And Jeremy, you made that happen, so I think I can speak for all of St. Louis when I say there was some questions that we all had that we wanted answered by him, and we want to thank you for finally getting that out of him, because there's been a lot of people wondering a lot of stuff that he talked about. So I wanted to ask you.
Yeah,
at the
I think it's
here.
a situation where, yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I just think it's a situation where, Jeff, most times when a coach is fired, regardless of the sport, they speak relatively soon, a couple weeks, maybe a month after they were let go. But these were, as we all know, different circumstances. I mean, say what you want to say, positive, negative. Did you like Mike Yeo? Did you question some of his coaching? But still, we're talking about a human being here who lost a job and then had to watch that team that he coached go on and win the Stanley Cup. So it took him a while to agree to talk, but I texted him last week, and he invited us up to the practice facility in New Jersey, and we had a chance to sit down with him for about an hour.
When was the interview actually conducted?
Yeah, last Friday.
Last Friday. Okay. So obviously he invited you into the practice facility, and did you kind of already? I'm sure. I mean, somebody who works in this field for as long as you have, there's probably a lot of things you said, I probably can't ask him this, but as you kind of became more comfortable with talking with him again, as you have many times in the past, did you start feeling more comfortable where you can maybe ask him things you wouldn't have normally?
Well, I think a situation, and you guys have all been involved in interviews and probably something really similar, is you ask questions, but once you get somebody going, they do a lot of the talking. And so you might have to steer the interview a little bit in terms of, if they get off course and start talking about the penalty kill for 15 minutes, you want to get back to, hey, what were some things that you regretted, or the accountability factor with this team. We saw that when Craig Berube came in, the team was really held to a high standard. Mike, what challenges did you face, holding some of these players accountable? And, so you try to get the interview back on course a little bit. But for the most part, because Mike Yeo had to kind of think about things, or 14 months, he knew what he wanted to say. There is a motive, an agenda when you agree to do a type of interview like this. So, I'm sure Mike thought long and hard about what he wanted to say. And so basically, we opened up and he just laid it out there. And so, yes, you do go into the interview. A lot of people script their questions. I don't like doing that. I like jotting down talking points. A lot of people today are critical of reporters who make statements and lead the person into a conversation. They think that you must ask a question. It has to end in a question mark. I understand that. That's professional. However, I have learned over 20 years of doing this that more times than not, if you just kind of lead somebody into the conversation, let them take you where they want to take you, a lot of times you'll get better information. If you ask a specific question, they're going to give you an answer that's only associated with that. So if you leave it a little open-ended, they might tell you something more than you bargained for. So I think in doing that with Mike Yeo in this interview, it allowed him to speak and say some of the things that you guys read in the story.
It's funny that you say that because back when I interviewed your co-host when he was on the Blues, I do remember one time specifically after a loss, I asked him a question that was more of a statement, and he just looked at me and said, "Is there a question in there?" And I said, yeah, and I kind of reworded it, and then he said, yeah, next time maybe just lead with that. So there you go. I'm sure you remember how Barrett was after losses.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I say that you lead somebody into a topic that you want to talk about. Everybody's different. You can go into that and you can make a statement to 5 of them, and they'll respond just as Jax did there and say, "Hey, ask a question." So you got to feel out the interviewee. But in Mike's case, to answer your question, I just kind of had to throw out some topics, and he was ready to say some of the things that had been built up in his mind for a long time.
So obviously, there's a lot to take in with this interview. This was, I'm sure, something you probably focused a lot of time on, I would guess, over the weekend since you had this interview on Friday. But there's a lot of things. He talked about things he did incorrectly, things he felt he could have done differently. And, I don't want to give away the key pieces of the article here because, again, if you're not subscribed to The Athletic, you need to do that now and read this article and everything else Jeremy and all the other hockey crew writes over there. But he mentioned about how he should have pushed harder at the end of the 2017-18 season. And this was the year the Blues were, I think, in first place in December and then fell off the map and just and missed the playoffs by a point. Did he elaborate at all on what changes he would have made to his philosophy? If, he said a lot, I should have pushed harder, I pushed harder. But, he didn't really say much. What could he have pushed differently?
Well, I just think be more demanding and to specifics. I asked him, and I think you could look at a variety of areas. It could be in practice. A lot of times you watch a NHL practice, and there will be an offsides, and sometimes the coach will let it go, and they'll just keep the play going and the focus of the drill or the focus of whatever they're trying to accomplish, they'll forget about the offsides. But, there are coaches that, stop the play, get a little huffy and puffy and, say, hey, let's start this thing over. And that's one minor example of being a more demanding coach, paying attention to detail. You'll notice that when Craig Berube came in, he was promoted to replace Mike Yeo. First thing he said, go back and watch the press conference. He said, we're going to take care of it in practice. We're going to do this in practice. We're going to work harder in practice. And you watch that interview, he said practice about 30 times in there. I don't think some of the things were necessarily, in practices under Mike Yeo were situations that the team was as strict and hard as they needed to be on each other. And when you start to get some of the loose ends there, they pop up all over the place. And I think collectively that leads to poor team play. And so, whether, like Mike touches on in the article, the ice time for a superstar like Vladimir Tarasenko, do you take that away? Mike Yeo said you're trying to win games. And he knows that, his neck's on the line in terms of winning games. And if you're sitting a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko, that doesn't help your chances of winning. So I think that he felt like the coaching clinics that he went to, like he says in the article, Scotty Bowman, others, they tell you when things are great, push hard. When they're not, back off. And he feels like he backed off a little too much.
Do you feel like he took that advice maybe a little too literally? Because, I've never coached at the level Mike Yeo has, but I know that when I've coached before, I feel the opposite. When the team's down, if I push them and I push them, that maybe they'll start doing something that they wouldn't have done before. Maybe they're making the play that we worked on in practice after I told them on the bench, hey, you have to do it this way. This is the only way it's going to work for us. Do you think he took that advice a little too literally from Scotty Bowman?
Yeah, and he says that he did too. It's hard. I think when Mike was speaking in the interview, he was speaking from a big picture point of view, where in fact he was going back, 8, 9, 10, 12 months on the calendar, back to times where he was losing sleep thinking about what he did wrong. And so, for him to come out and pinpoint reasons why he didn't push harder, I think would have been difficult for him to do, on the spot there during the interview. But I think, him realizing that he wasn't hard enough, I think is a pretty big admission. I mean, here's a coach who kind of had some of those issues in Minnesota. Perhaps he gave guys like Ryan Suter and Zach Parise too much rope, is what the word was when he left Minnesota. And then when he came to St. Louis, in a situation in St. Louis, I think, we've talked about everything that's gone on inside the Blues locker room. I know that people, about locker room personalities, so on and so forth. But when Mike Yeo was the coach of this team, those issues in the locker room were real. And I think he believes, had he saw Craig Berube do and more accountable, push these, got more out of them, they would have won a few more games and they wouldn't have missed the playoffs by 1 point.
Yeah, that was the thing that I found pretty interesting, was some of his talk of, that Berube, and he mentions a lot in the article. Again, something I don't want to give it away too much, but he does commend Berube on the job he did after he was let go. And
talk about it,
yeah. And I thought that, we got to tease a little bit here, Jeremy. I mean, we don't want people just taking our word for it on how great this article was. We want people to actually read it. No, I thought that was interesting because he talked a lot about what Berube did. But one question that I had for you, and I know Kurt and I and Bill had all discussed this before we had you on, maybe it's just the way it came off and the way he said it, but did you get the sense that Yeo felt that had he not been fired, he may have had some of the same success that Berube did?
I don't think he came across that way. And now we have to keep in mind that when you talk for an hour and you only use some of the comments, it's impossible to,
right.
To use everything. I think, to answer your question, I think this. He feels that it was going to take some time to get these guys playing the way they needed to play together. You guys can recall that at the first half of the season, first 20 games, even after Mike left and Craig was promoted, these players weren't playing for each other. And Mike says it in the article. He says that, guys were wondering about, hey, what's he doing over there? What's he doing over there? Instead of, what am I doing? And so I think Mike probably in his heart believes that had he been given more time, they would have eventually gotten there. He did say, and you guys read it, that it was a situation like when he took over for Ken Hitchcock, they got a big jolt. He does believe Berube coming in and a new code, new voice. But we have to be honest with our all that long. It's not a situation, Ken Hitchcock, where you're here a half a dozen years and, it just wears on you. And, any new voice is a refreshing situation. Mike wasn't here that long. So I think that Mike is right in giving credit, as he does, to the coaching staff. They made some big lineup changes. They moved Robert Thomas around. They put certain guys together. And I think he understands that this coaching staff did a lot of things to put the pieces in place for this organization to go on and have the success that it did. But you can't sit here and think that Craig Berube wins a Stanley Cup without Jordan Binnington. And Mike Yeo didn't have Jordan Binnington. So, Mike Yeo had a lot of faults. We saw that the power play struggled. We saw, a number of areas where the team struggled. It's not to say that if Mike Yeo has Jordan Binnington, they still win the cup. It's just to point out that they didn't have the goaltending under him, and the defense was lousy. And so does he believe that he could have led this team to a Stanley Cup? I don't think he's saying that, and I don't think he necessarily believes that that would have been guaranteed. But I do believe that he thinks had he been given more time and maybe a chance for the goaltender to show up on the scene, a chance for the players to play together for each other, I think he believes there would have been a much different outcome.
So that's something that I found very interesting, and just with the Blues in general. And maybe this is something that Blues fans probably think about but don't really know how to voice it. So we'll see. Maybe people agree with me here. But I feel like a lot of that blame, you mentioned how bad the defense was. Mike Van Ryn was brought in as the defensive coach the season before in 2018, 2019. And he obviously changed some systems around. And the Blues were awful. As you said, the defense just was not there. Jake Allen was not getting the support that we see him get now. And I just, I've always wondered with the timing, was it that it was a coaching change and an overall philosophy change that Berube instilled? Or was it that Mike Van Ryn's system just needed time to progress into what it is now? Because I think a lot of people instantly pin that on Yo, but I mean, there might be other factors there.
I just think it's a combination of a lot of things. And, I'm probably guilty, and I got to say this up front, of believing that a lot of things in life are a combination. I think that even in sports, we look at it as black and white. This happened because of this. If this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen. And to me, you got a first-year NHL defensive coach in Mike Van Ryn. You have a mid-30s defenseman who's coming off of hip surgery. You have a coach and a GM. Let's not forget, Doug Armstrong's involved in the strategy and the planning of the team and such. And they had a mission, as Mike says in the article, to improve the scoring. The Blues were 24th in the league in goals per game the year before. So they bring in Maroon, they bring in Perron, they bring in O'Reilly, they bring in Bozak. They want to boost the offense, and it came at the expense of the defense, which, again, the defense had issues itself. So, I think all those things kind of come together. And then once you add in high expectations and you add that slow start, 2 wins in the first 10 or 11 games, all that stuff starts to come together. Then you start to question, is he the right guy for the job, so on and so forth. So, yeah, I just think that you can't look at it black and white. You have to factor in all the issues that I just talked about.
Personally, just somebody who covers the team as much as you do and is around the team and sees them in practice, sees them in all games, what do you think was Yo's biggest downfall?
I think that it was something that probably wasn't discussed enough in the article, probably could have paid a little more attention to it in the article. And that's, he wonders, I think, was he ready for this next job? Did he learn enough from the Minnesota situation to be the head coach of a team with a Stanley Cup expectations? It's hard for a coach at the time when you're looking for a job. You need to stay in the league. You can't just fade away and be, off the grid for a couple years. And when Doug Armstrong calls you and says, hey, how about the coach in waiting? You come in and learn under Hitch and then take over. Who's going to say no to that? But I think the vibe that I got from Mike Yeo is, had he learned enough? Was he ready? So we can sit here and try to answer the question you asked with, is he a good coach? Does he have a good system? Does he know how to respond to adversity? I think it was a situation, as I touched on with him in the conversation, that I don't know that there was enough time after he gets fired in Minnesota to grow. So I think the answer to the question is big picture. Was he ready for this? And I think he himself probably believes that he wasn't ready at the time.
So okay, I have a question. You mentioned the coach in waiting scenario, which I think maybe confused a lot of people. A lot of people were not on board with that necessarily. It was a controversial idea. Do you think that was, assuming that if he was not ready for, necessarily ready for the head coaching job of the Blues, maybe the head coach in waiting was a good idea? Because I was going to ask you how you felt about that position he had, and what you thought about it. But after you said that, maybe Yo wasn't ready for the head coach of this team, maybe others thought that, and the head coach in waiting was a way to get him ready to be the coach of this team. Is that fair or no?
Yeah. No, I think it's fair. I think, we have to step back for 1 second, understand why Doug Armstrong did the coach in waiting approach. And it's because, and he's talked about this before, when they brought him in to succeed Larry Plow, Doug Armstrong was the GM in waiting. He came in 2008 and got his feet wet, learned the organization, and then took over the duties from Larry Plow in 2010. So he had 2 years GM in waiting. And so he had that background, that context of, he thought that was a very good thing for him. And so he decided to go that route with Ken Hitchcock. I think it also put a timetable on the end of Ken Hitchcock's tenure as coaching here in St. Louis, because remember at the time, I think Ken Hitchcock was kind of going on a year-by-year basis, and I think there were probably points where Doug Armstrong would have liked to have moved on. In fact, I know there were at one point they were set to fire Ken Hitchcock prior to him going on that run when they went to the Western Conference Finals. So I think they wanted to have an end game to the Ken Hitchcock era, so that's another part of the reason why they did the coach in waiting. But to me, to have a GM in waiting is so much different than a coach in waiting. The GM in waiting, people barely knew what Doug Armstrong did on a daily basis. but behind the scenes, you didn't see him. He wasn't in the cameras. But when you're talking about, a team of 20 players, and every day Ken Hitchcock and Mike Yeo are on the ice, who do you listen to? You're listening to Hitch, right? But at the same time, Mike's going to be your coach. Well, Mike's developing a relationship with these guys that's, a little bit cozier because he's the assistant, right? He's the good cop. And I just think it created an awkward situation. I've talked to players about it. They agree that it wasn't the best idea. So, could that coach in waiting have helped Mike Yeo grow into that role if he wasn't ready after leaving Minnesota? Yeah, perhaps. From that aspect, it might have been a good idea. But I think from the awkwardness of the arrangement, it was probably a bad idea.
There's so many questions I have.
Done elsewhere.
No, yeah, we haven't seen it elsewhere. No. Probably won't see it done elsewhere either.
Yeah, right.
That's man. There's so many questions that I have from just the last comments you made. But one comes to mind of, do you think Doug Armstrong feels the same way the players do, and that you do, that maybe it wasn't the right idea, or do you think it's something we might still see in the future?
No, he actually, and again, this is a situation where there's just not enough room to, you'd write 10,000 words if you included everything. But you guys might recall that at the press conference to promote Craig Berube, he was asked about the coach in waiting. He himself admitted that, it might not have been the best idea.
Do you, so I don't know, the sense I get from you, and again, somebody who's around the game, even more than Kurt, Bill, and myself are, do you get the sense that maybe when there's a coach in waiting, like we saw with Yo and Hitchcock, you had mentioned that it was kind of a, hey, we want the end of the Hitchcock era to come. Would you say that's most times we see a coach in waiting? Is it, we're ready for this era to end and we've got the next guy? Or do you think there are other reasons why teams would do the coach in waiting situation?
I think it's all case by case. And to be honest, I can't, first of all, people who've been around the game a lot longer than I have never recalled such a situation in hockey. Maybe other sports, football, I think maybe college football. I think somebody pointed out there was a coach in waiting. And I don't think we've seen it since. And there's a reason we haven't seen it. So to me, it's probably case by case. And hey, look, you could probably look at a number of organizations throughout the league where you got a pretty good idea somebody in the system is going to take over. There's a lot of times where, AHL coach is the guy who's being groomed to take over. It just never is clearly open and designed that way as it was with Mike Yeo.
We have a very important question here from one of my hockey teammates. He says, how often are we going to have Hockey Bob on the podcast, and when is his next appearance? Guys, what do you think?
Hockey Bob.
No, Hockey Bob. You know Hockey Bob. Come on, JR. You know him, right?
Yeah. I've met him a few times out at Blues functions.
Everyone.
Good guy.
Oh, the
Everyone
social
knows
media
Hockey
Hockey
Bob.
Bob. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know Hockey Bob.
Of course. Of course.
We love Hockey Bob here at Let's Go Blues Radio.
Sure we do, yeah.
So Jeremy, I want to ask you, and again, I somebody who's had a relationship a little bit with Yo and has gotten to know him better than anybody on this panel. How do you feel? Do you think Yo is just not cut out to be a head coach in the league after all of the issues he's seen in Minnesota and St. Louis, and how he's really just even stated that handling adversity and not having answers to fix the team's problems? Do you think that he's just not cut out, or do you think he's still kind of learning as he goes and that we'll see him as a head coach again?
I think the one thing that we have to remember, and he said it last comment of the story, was he's 46 years old. I mean, we really have to keep that in mind. He also said that it's very difficult for a young coach to be successful in this league, first, maybe even second job. He threw out a stat. I don't know how accurate it is, so take this loosely, and we'd have to double check it. But the last 10 Stanley Cup winners, only one of the coaches won it in his first stop. So again, take that with a grain of salt. We'll have to look it up. But it sounds pretty accurate. Most of these guys, you look at Joel Quenneville, what was it, his third stop with Chicago. That's not to compare Mike Yeo to Joel Quenneville, but they learn a lot on their first job, second job. We all know that the NHL recycles coaches a lot. I believe, and I've talked to a lot of people about this in the past 48 hours because I wrote the story, I believe there's a good chance that he will get another job, head coaching job. It depends entirely on the success of the team he's with, so we'll see what happens in Philadelphia. People, if you're driving down the road and you're listening to this, you might drive off into a ditch thinking about the idea of Mike Yeo being handed the keys again to a third organization. I get the questions about, some of the areas of, his teams, whether it be power play, whether it be scoring, whether it be, does he have the proper demeanor to command the everyday respect of a team? I get all that stuff, but I think it's a little bit too easy, too simple for us to watch him coach 5 years in Minnesota, and they had some success. Let's not forget about that success there, but ultimately be fired, come to St. Louis, fail here, and then watch Craig Berube take that same team and win a Stanley Cup. I think it's easy for us to sit here and say, this guy's just not a good coach. There's no chance that he's going to get another job, nor should he, when you just base it on that. We could sit here and rattle off coach after coach after coach after coach after coach who's been in, a similar situation earlier in their career where things didn't work out. So, I'm not trying to convince anybody that Mike Yeo is a good coach. The future will decide, how good of a coach he is. I just think it's a little bit unfair to base things on what we've seen, in particularly something like we saw in St. Louis that hasn't happened in the history of the game. Like a guy comes in, gets fired, and there's this historic season.
Yeah, I agree. So I want to get to a couple quick questions here from our listeners because we have great listeners. And for those of you who have not heard Jeremy and Barrett Jackman's podcast, they provide something completely different than we do, much different view of the game. And make sure you tune in there as well. We Went Blues is the name of the podcast, so make sure you check them out as well. And I'm sure you have a way of people asking questions for your show. Do you guys have like a mailbag segment or anything?
You're on MySpace, right? MySpace?
MySpace, right? and Friendster as well.
Friendster.
Yeah, no, we have 5 questions for number 5, Barrett Jackman, but evidently it's not a cool enough segment for Erica.
That's right. So real quick, some questions for our listeners. JR, this is from Jimmy Anderson. He says, JR, I love all your work. The time Dunk said the Buffaloes was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. I don't know about that one. I guess you know what he's talking about.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, that was just the recap on that one is so I do the hits on 101, and you never know what the hosts are going to ask. And Chris Duncan was doing the show with Anthony Stalter, and I believe they were playing the Buffalo Sabres. I might have been in Buffalo, I can't remember, but Chris Duncan said something about the Blues playing the Buffaloes that night, and I didn't know whether to correct them. I didn't know. We all started laughing. I didn't know which direction to go with that, but Chris was a great dude. We all miss him, and that was one of the more memorable radio hits that I've had talking about the Buffaloes.
Yeah, man, I can't believe I missed that one. I was a big fan of Dunk myself. B&H Kell says, JR, I guess he's asking you, okay, here, it's a two-parter. Well, never mind. Just he didn't write it well. Can I ask about how JR feels about Justin Falk and how well he's adapted to the team so far?
Yeah, I rarely get anything right, but I'm just kidding. We had a situation there where you guys know how it is. People just want to attack players and come to conclusions and evaluations based on a couple weeks, and I just did not get that with Justin Falk. I did not get it. I know that we had a mailbag at the Athletic that said he's struggling. What's going on with Justin Falk, but let's keep in mind here that this guy was with one organization for what was it, 7-8 years? I think it was, and so anyway, he comes to a new team. He's used to being the first guy to jump over the boards, even strength, power play, penalty kill, and that was Pietrangelo, that was Parayko. Then all of a sudden, they're playing him on the left side a little bit. To me, I don't think that Justin Falk is Alex Pietrangelo. The talk that he could be the guy if Alex Pietrangelo signs elsewhere, I don't think Justin Falk's that guy. But I think I knew he was going to be much better than he showed the first month or so of the season, first couple months of the season. If you want to criticize the length of the extension, I get it. But as we all know, that's to get the AAV down. The Blues have a window to win right now. They need to get Schenn, Pietrangelo, Falk, all these guys at a decent price, and get them all into the cap if you want to try to win a Stanley Cup or two in this next window, and that comes at the expense of giving these guys a lot of term. But hey, if you want to be critical of the term on the Falk deal, I get it. But I think that anybody could have seen he was going to be a better player after the first couple months.
Speaking of Petro, real quick, are they going to get a deal done, you think?
That's a tough one. I think they will. I've said that about players in the past, and they don't get a deal done. I was surprised that they got the deal done with Schenn. I thought he was a guy that they were going to probably hang on to through the deadline, get a playoff run out of him, and then maybe lose him in the summer. But with regard to Alex Pietrangelo, everybody wants to talk about he's having a Norris-type season. He's having a great season. He's just driving the price up. Hey, he can drive the price up all he wants. The Blues have a figure in mind. They know what it is. I think Alex Pietrangelo's camp knows what it is. It's about $8.25 million. Would they go up to 8.5? Would they go up to 8.75? Perhaps. But if you're Alex Pietrangelo, you want $9 million plus. You want something in that range of the Roman Josi deal. Here's the thing. Let's go back to the term for a second. If you're Alex Pietrangelo and you're getting ready to turn 30 years old, do you want to finish your career here? I'm sure that the Blues could accommodate an 8-year deal, max deal. But I think it's a situation where they're not going to do an 8-year max deal for $9+ million. So they're going to have to meet somewhere in the middle. I think there's a really good chance that he re-signs here, but you always have to leave open that small percentage that perhaps he could go to the market and get what he's deserved.
Jeremy, I think I can speak on Bill and Kurt's behalf, and thank you very much for coming on the show. I know that You probably had a couple interview requests today after that story broke. So thank you very much for taking time out of your day to be with us and talk about it. We've plugged you plenty, I think, but let's plug you some more. We mentioned the Athletic, the podcast, obviously, but I want to ask you too. Do you have anything in the works in terms of books? If anyone hasn't read the Bernie Fedorko book that Jeremy wrote with Bernie, it was very well done, and obviously the many books he wrote before, the 99 Things Blues Fans Know, and I'm sorry, I can never remember the title of that one.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, me either.
That's a good one. But anyway, anything in the works for you? Oh, there you go. 100 Things Blues Fans. Hold it up closer, Bill.
Here.
Should know and do before they die. There you go.
There it is. We got it.
But yeah, anything else in the works for you?
Blues player there.
Yeah, right.
No, but I think we need to. Actually, I do. I'll tell you in 1 second. But I think we need to have another night out with Bernie Fedorko and listen to some more Fedorko stories. Right?
That was the best night of my life.
Yes.
That was awesome.
What was the one that he said that night? Have a dump or something?
The difference between Americans and Canadians, having a shit and taking a shit, and how Americans are wrong and how they phrase it. And I
will say,
I can't disagree with him.
yeah, since he said that, and that phrase will come out of my mouth, I'll say, no, I got to say the way Bernie says it, because that makes way more sense.
It really does.
Yeah.
Where are you taking it?
Yeah, it's with everything. You'll hear Bernie or hear other guys. Yeah. You'll hear him say, I got to go have a shower or something. He says, well, you don't take it. You're not.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, some of the things that he says. But yeah, no. So what happened is that book that you just showed, I appreciate it. And thanks, guys. I mean, this is awesome being on the show. It's awesome that you guys, are mentioning some of the things that we've been able to do, the Athletic. I really appreciate it. Don't take it for granted. The one thing for Blues fans, that 100 Things Blues, or whatever the name of that book is, we went into it, and the publisher Triumph, they call and they say, hey, listen, we're going to do a Stanley Cup edition of the book. So you have 100 chapters. You need to take out 5 or 6 of the worst ones. And I said, well, I've got like 100 bad chapters in that book. And so they said, well, take out the 5 worst and then write 5 new ones. So coming out in March, same book, different cover, Stanley Cup edition, logo on it. But it will be updated with chapters on the O'Reilly trade, Pat Maroon, who declared himself a hometown hero on stage, Gloria, and Jordan Bennington. So there's 5 or 6 new chapters, but for the most part, the rest of that book will be the same. So that comes out in March.
Cool.
Well, thanks, Jeremy. That means I'll be spending more money on the same book, so I appreciate that.
No problem. I'll get you one. I'll meet you down.
You could probably even do 100 Things Blues fans should know, in whatever the name of it is, on just last season. I'm sure you could come up with 100 stories.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was crazy, and they did say, hey, we just want you to limit it to 5 or 6. But guys, at the end of last season, I was ready for anything. We went down to Florida for vacation with the family, and I think I was there for 2 days, and then Jordan Bennington signed his contract. So while the rest of the family was down at the beach, I was back at the condo typing up the Jordan Bennington story. So it just seemed to never end, but that's a good thing, right?
That's right. Plenty. It's job security for you, the way I see it.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I did. I want to ask you too. This is something. Actually, somebody asked me earlier to ask you. Did you get a extended period of time with the cup? I know you probably didn't get a day, but did you get maybe a couple hours with the cup by yourself?
No, not at all. And just like, I don't know how to say it. I've always thought we're media, they're the team. To me, I'm even surprised how that cup makes the rounds, and the Blues are able to allow so many employees to spend some time with it. So, I want to be clear, never in a million years do I ever even feel an association with the with the club where they would, even consider something like that. On the other hand, some friends, John Kelly, Rich Jankowski, a number of them, to invite my wife and I to some of their parties with the cup. So Did get to see it, touch it, hold it, all that stuff. My wife took a drink out of the cup, but I think she was more enamored that it was Colton Parayko that was pouring it into her mouth than she was it being the Stanley Cup. But we had a great time with it, and all thanks to the people who work with the St. Louis Blues.
And anything you want to plug with the Athletic, the podcast, anything we didn't touch on, maybe? How people could sign up for the Athletic?
Yeah, no, just go to theathletic.com if you don't have a subscription. I will tell you, if you got one more second, I'll tell you about a story that's coming up.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be real quick. So I've had this idea for a long time, and I can't wait to get it in motion here. But it's Blues fans who name their kids after Blues players. And, of course, you know, you have a lot of I think you have one. You mentioned your friend is named Bernie, right?
Yep, yeah, my friend Mike, who's a listener of the show, actually. His son, he named Bernie after, obviously, Bernie Federko. So he's pretty excited to be involved in the story.
Yeah, so I'm going to give him a call. I just had to put the story down for a couple weeks, but I'm going to jump back on it soon. But just to give you guys two quick anecdotes, is there's a family in St. Louis couple. She might be from Cleveland, but they live in St. Louis now. And her name is Alyssa. His name is Dan, and their son's name is Vladimir.
That's great.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't want to give away too much of the story, but there's another one that just blows me away. And you know, hopefully you hear the story. Maybe it'll make you want to read it whenever I finish it. But Chris Pronger and Brendan Shanahan, famous trade, right? So these two people are talking about the trade. They become boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. They have a son, and they name the son because of the way they met over that trade. They named their son Brendan Christopher. So pretty crazy how those things happen.
That's fantastic. Man, that's awesome. I'm sure it's kind of humbling for these guys to hear stuff like that. I know my son, I always say he is named after Shea Weber, but my wife will tell you that is not the case.
You've always said that, though. You've always said that.
It's true, because when we first got together and we were watching hockey, I don't know if you guys remember the situation where Shea Weber was, well, I'm saying the game itself. The Predators were playing the Red Wings in the playoffs. And Shea Weber had knocked Henrik Zetterberg's head into the glass. I think he even got suspended for it. And my wife saw his name up on the screen, and she goes, not only is that guy attractive, but he's a badass, and his name is Shea. And this was like us dating for maybe 6 months. And I'm like, yeah, well, when we have a kid, we'll name him Shea. And so, of course, that's the first thing I brought up when she got pregnant. And I was like, you're still cool with that? She goes, yeah, of course. So I'm like, okay, well, then I get to tell people that we named him after Shea Weber.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I did catch Pronger was at the rink today, and so I interviewed him for the story. And he said, let me tell you, Jeremy, how hard it was when I got to St. Louis and every little kid I met was named Brendan.
That's funny. Well, again, Jeremy, we want to thank you again for coming on. This has been a lot of fun. We've kept you a lot longer than we said we would, but I think we had fun, and I hope you did as well.
Keep it tuned to my favorite podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio.
That's right. Thank you, Erica Weston. Please give her trouble about that. That'll be great.
Guaranteed.
We're gonna clip
All
that.
right.
We're gonna use that.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy. We appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you, Jeremy.
All right, thanks, boys.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yep.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Man.
We don't have anything else to talk about, do we?
Interview.
Yeah, an interview about an interview. I love it. So we talked about the early on in the show. It was a listener's comment, right? The greatest time to be a Blues fan
Oh, yeah.
in history.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So past 3 years in St. Louis, there was an article actually written about this on KSTK.com. And in the past 3 years in St. Louis, we've seen a Winter Classic, Stanley Cup title, NHL All-Star Game, unprecedented team success, and local talent excelling. It was written by Corey Miller, KSTK.com. It's an okay article, kind of a rah-rah piece, rather short and not real in-depth. But it talks about this being the best time to be a Blues fan. And I've heard this tossed around a lot lately. I think everybody has. And I think, obviously, this probably is the greatest time to be a Blues fan. But I think I want to think there's a lot of new fans on board, a lot of younger folks, a lot of new fans that maybe weren't around in previous eras. And I think I want to just remind folks that there were actually some really, really good times to be Blues fans. No, obviously no cups, but we had. I mean, shoot, this team's been really good, not just the past few seasons. I mean, the most points and most wins in the Western Conference since 2010. Since 2000, they're third in the West in points, only behind San Jose and Dallas. San Jose has the most points in the league since, 2000. 20 years. Most points in the NHL. That's nuts.
Again, we said this a couple weeks ago, feel bad for their fans. They have that, but they don't have any cups.
No, I mean,
it's a shame.
Again, but we went through that. I mean, we were up there in wins, and we just didn't have a cup until last season. So we know what it feels like.
But to that, I will say that when the Sharks knocked us out in 16, I think it was, and then went on to lose to Pittsburgh, I was cheering for the Sharks to win, but something inside of me knew that if they won, it would never be right, because I remember when they were a brand new team when I was a teenager, right? They're half our age.
I did want to see them win
as
too,
a team.
but I get you, and it's like there's something I dislike about any team that came into the league after the Blues winning a cup before the Blues do. Yeah. That does not sit well with me. Even though I would have, our friends over at Teal Town would love to see them bask in that victory.
Yeah,
but I
mean, they'll get theirs.
Sure,
but,
I mean, well, actually, I mean, they need to do something. They're sinking ship with some cap problems and contract issues, and they got some work to do.
They put a little bit too much money into that Erik Karlsson fella.
Yeah, I mean, and they let Pavelski go.
That's right now they're a hot mess.
Yeah,
but get some goaltending. Look what it did for us.
Right, exactly. It's that easy. Snap your fingers. Just pull up a goaltender out of a hat.
Yeah, we were talking about that a couple weeks ago. Like, do they have a Bennington?
No, I've been on their show and we talked to them. They don't really have one. They don't. I mean, we didn't think we had a Bennington though.
Yeah,
but we knew we had Bennington. We didn't know we had.
Why not Bennington?
We didn't know we had that caliber of Bennington. Also, birth of the Blues. Okay, being awarded a team in '66, 3 straight trips to the finals in their first year in the NHL, and the city fell in love with the team. That's a nice era. Late '80s, early '90s, which to me it can't be understated. The emergence of Brett Hull, 87, 88. That's when he came to the Blues.
Yes.
The All-Star game in St. Louis in '88. Federico notching 1,000 points for his career in '88. Adam Oates joins Hull in '89, and they got the Kiel Center financed and whatnot, and it was finished in '94.
Right.
So that from that 6-year span, 5-6 year span, 7-year span was that's tremendous.
Not only that, but I mean, add on 5 more years, 6 more years to that, and you've got a Western Conference Final appearance, and Chris Pronger, Al McInnes, 2 of the greatest defensemen to ever play the game.
Those battles with Detroit.
Phil Housley, one of the greatest U.S. players to ever play the game. I mean, there's
the
plenty
Quinville era
of
right, and after that, the Quinville era was the
greatest coach in NHL history. Possibly
2000,
by the time it's all said and done.
The 2000 Presidents Cup,
right? But you think back to that era, like I don't, up until this season, because we haven't talked about it a whole lot. The Yzerman goal has been a topic of conversation, but that era, that era from when the Red Wings won the Cup in '96 until 2003 or so, right? That was, there were so many dominant teams in the Western Conference. I mean, when the Red Wings won, they were insanely great. When the Avalanche won, they were insanely great. When the Stars won, they were insanely great. The Blues were a really great team, just couldn't get over the hump. And the team that we didn't expect to do it is the team that finally did it.
I know. There's so many great stories with the team, the Cup run, and this era, and the success this team's had, and culminating with the Cup championship, just like the cherry on top for the huge ass fucking cherry on top. But anyway, I just wanted to, yes, this is the best of the best for Blues fans right now, but there are a few different eras in Blues history that were pretty fantastic.
Depending on how you want to categorize an era, it's kind of awesome that the three of us have lived through all of those moments you just said. I mean,
not the birth of the Blues, but
Yeah.
Well,
But,
no,
Yeah, we
no,
were-
no,
we
no.
were-
the-
but yeah, the rest
we
of them.
were
Yeah.
there for that.
Yeah.
But tonight, you tweeted out from the LGB account the links to the Crombie goal
yeah.
in '81 and the Turgeon goal in '99.
Yep.
I
99,
mean,
yep.
I remember, like, I was 5 years old when that Crombie goal was scored. I remember
It's on the wall right here. I got
it's-
the newspaper
it's-
frame.
Yeah, it's insane. The thing I remember most about that though was Greg Millen dancing to the Budweiser
Yeah.
song.
That the article is out there online.
Yeah.
You can view the article for the Globe Democrat or whatever it was at the time.
Yeah.
And it talks about Millen dancing to the Budweiser, the Oregon Budweiser
Yeah.
theme. It's just
And but what a great team that was.
Mm-hmm.
I have probably my most prized possession is this terrible scrapbook that I kept of newspaper clippings from that era. And
Oh, I
the
have that
Crombie
too.
Goals in there. It's amazing.
It's,
I just hope those aren't forgotten with the emergence of the Cup era and the influx of new younger fans, because a lot of fans aren't going to know about that as much, and it won't be talked about probably as much because until we won the Cup, it was always reflecting on these great moments we had in the past that weren't a Cup. They were just great moments that But now you talk about a great moment, it's going to be this. This is what it's going to be.
Right.
And I don't want those to be forgotten because those were fantastic eras.
Right. No, the Cup win kind of validates everything, right?
Yeah. Sure.
It's like it's the payoff.
It makes it worth it.
Right.
Right.
Whereas a lot of well, at least our perception of it is a lot of our friends up in Chicago way think that Patrick Kane's the greatest player in Blackhawks history, and there was no Tony Esposito, there
Right.
was no Stan Mikita,
Right.
They don't, but I guess what we get from the national media is just the recency, but
Sure.
Recency
bias.
Yeah, it is,
and I think
the
you
history
could argue
is so important.
to what Bill's saying. I think you could argue too that this doesn't happen without those years. I mean, you think of again. I hate bringing this up, but I mean Saskatoon. That happens. This doesn't happen, And Brett Hull putting hockey on the map in St. Louis with his 86 goal season and the 50 and 50 and again, you mentioned Joel Quenneville kind of ushering in this new system that had two of the greatest defensemen ever play the game. And just it all just pinballed into this everything that this has been this last couple. I mean, again, the Winter Classic, which happened a couple of years before the Stanley Cup, because of the support from Blues fans, minus a couple of years there when they were terrible, because of the support. The NHL saw the value in getting a big game out there. And then again, with the All-Star game, when they announced that last year, it was, look at the support we're getting in St. Louis. Look at the TV numbers. And that's all because so many fans have witnessed so many great moments in Blues history that didn't result in a cup. And we all just kept saying, even if we didn't want to admit it, it was going to happen. Eventually this team is going to go all the way, and it's going to be so much more worth it when they do.
Brett Hull was a catalyst for so much of that. I mean, he got a Kiel Center built.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
without Hull here, who knows what happens with a new arena?
I mean,
and the thing is that Ron Perron brings him in. So, I mean, where's Perron's bust that should be inside Enterprise right now? He needs a bust and a podium inside Enterprise. To be honest.
Right. As much as we like our retire 44, I think that's probably a better crusade for us to go on. Right.
Perron.
Ron Perron.
Honor him somehow.
The professor.
Yes, the professor.
Yeah.
Just
Professor's
something.
Corner. Build it somewhere in Enterprise Center.
Yes. Yeah. You could have a bust, and then you could have somebody for luck. You rub his bald head. That's what you do. You walk by, you rub his bald head.
And say there's meat on the burger.
Yes. Oh, have a Buster Roncaron grilling a steak.
There you go.
How great would
I
that
like
be?
that.
There you go.
A couple great
Calgary.
comments here. There's a little bit of a conversation going on in the YouTube chat. Man, if I had a nickel for every time I heard about the Yzerman goal on this show, I feel like I lived it and I wasn't even born yet. B8 and H. Kell says, Dan, I was 11 years old. That was from Dan Draheim. Dan, I was 11 years old when Stevie Y put that in over Casey's shoulder. I cried myself to sleep. My mom let me stay home from school the following day. That heart broken. And Crappy Goalie adds, that's still the most depressed I've ever been after a game, no question.
Those Blues fans who lived through that, and remember that, it was a traumatic experience. It really was. And it's burned in my brain, as I'm sure everyone's, and it's something you don't forget. And obviously NBC and the national media, they don't, as Dallas ties the game late, which kind of sucks standing-wise. But anyway.
This has been a fun game to watch,
Yeah,
though.
yeah, it's close, 2-2, late in the third. So I can't help but think about it every now and then because it's just, and if we had knocked off the Red Wings one of those seasons in the playoffs or something, and maybe it wouldn't have been as big of a deal because you could have gotten revenge. We never got our revenge against the Red Wings, and they left the conference, and that was it.
No.
There's more to that story. They need to come back.
Maybe
so we
at
can
this
whoop them some
point,
more.
maybe at this point we could meet them in the 2032 Stanley Cup Final. It's
Yeah,
going to take them a while to get there, though.
Oh my God.
We joked about that. And again, this goes to show how long this show has been on the air, folks. We used to joke about that when they moved over to the Eastern Conference, hey, hopefully when the Blues win the Cup, they'll play the Red Wings in the Stanley Cup Final and kick their ass.
Right. That was it's like hurry up and get good, Detroit. Hurry up. We're good really right now. Just next couple years, just get good. Which that's not going to happen.
Yeah, definitely not.
No.
44 points at this point in the season for them.
Yeah. Well, hey, Fabry's having a good year.
Good for him.
Yeah. So Perron wins the last men in vote for the Central Division and will join Bennington, O'Reilly, Pietrangelo, Berube, and the Blues training staff at the 2020 All-Star Game in St. Louis in a couple of weekends. This is awesome. We pushed for this, and Blues fans pushed for this, and got it done. A guy who really wanted to go to this game, and St. Louis fans got him in, and deservedly so. And so he only got in, but he not only got in, he deserves to be in.
Yeah, he shouldn't have been the last man in vote.
No, he leads the team in scoring.
And I mean, I think I feel like he would have been an injury replacement if he doesn't get it right.
Yes.
Wasn't Oshie going to be the injury replacement for Ovechkin? I thought I heard that rumor. And then he got voted in anyway.
Injury replacement. The Ovechkin.
Right. Or I'm sorry, just the replacement.
Right.
Yeah.
Ovechkin don't have to do that shit for you.
Yeah. Did you hear what Bob McKenzie said about that?
No.
Did not.
About who said don't vote for me? Who?
That was the Detroit Dylan Larkin.
Yes. He goes, don't vote for me. I don't. I'd rather have the days off. You know. And Bob McKenzie went off on him. He was like, "This is a promotion for the league. You know, this league pays your salary. You know, you need to support the league." And then he was asked on air, well, what about Ovechkin? Because Ovechkin's earned that right to turn this game down. Oh, fuck you, Bob. Come on, you've got a different standard for Ovechkin, who is a no-brainer first ballot Hall of Fame or whatever, but. As opposed to Larkin. Come on, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
One comment. I get thinking that, but you can't say that.
If you're Bob
Come on.
McKenzie, you can.
Oh, whatever.
Say he can say whatever he wants.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. If you're
Bob
gonna say,
McKenzie is a Letterkenny star.
well, it wasn't Bob McKenzie. I'm sorry. It was not Bob McKenzie. It was who was it? It was
Great reference there, Bill.
Who was it? It was former coach and former GM.
Gordon Ramsay.
No. Anyway.
Oh, are you talking the guy from?
It was on Sportsnet.
Brian Burke.
Yes, Brian Burke.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Bob
Yeah.
McKenzie. Brian Burke.
Yeah.
So he was really not surprising.
He goes, I would have, rearranged his face if he had said it was one of my players. And I was like, okay.
Brian
rearranged
Burke
his
is
face.
angling for the next host of Coach's Corner.
My apologies
I
to
hope
Bob
that doesn't
McKenzie
happen.
for screwing that up.
He's better known for being a GM, so should they change it to GM's Corner?
Yeah, probably.
There we go.
He'll never get it though.
GM
'cause he's
Circle?
American.
Although they do love him up there. They really do.
Are you the All-Star game? Do you guys like the All-Star game, or you dislike the All-Star game, or
I haven't watched it in years just because I haven't found it entertaining.
do you hate the All-Star game? Do you think
No.
they should not have it?
No. I mean it is what it is, and it is a chance for the NHL to promote itself how it wants to. Maybe I don't like that all the time, but it gives one city the opportunity to get a greater experience of the game, and it's about time that it came back here.
Oh yeah, God, yeah.
But for the most part,
20
I don't find it
32
compelling enough to watch the game.
I always have it on. Sometimes I'm intently watching. Sometimes on the background. But it's on. I enjoy it. I mean, I'm somewhat entertained by it. It's the skills competition too. I have it on. I don't had a comment from a guy who's on another podcast, another blues podcast, who commented on my comment on Twitter about how basically it does zero to market the league, and they shouldn't even have it. And I was like,
is this Jeremy Rutherford that said it? God, that jerk.
no. It was but and I'm like, are you kidding me? Not having an all-star game at all or a skills competition would be terrible PR. Come on, that's way worse than not having a game. That's ridiculous.
We've talked about this. We've talked about this to a certain extent. I'm more of a skills guy. I love watching the skills competition. I watched the John Scott year. I'll say this. I've watched every year they change it up, and they say, oh, we're going to do it this year. We're going to do the players pick their teams, and we're going to have captains, blah, blah, blah. That, I've watched the first year of all of that, and I applaud the NHL for changing it up. I think that's very necessary with all-star games nowadays. Sorry, we're getting a lot of comments right now in the YouTube chat. I'm trying to not read them as I talk, but I can't help myself because I have ADHD. But anyway, I love the skills competition, but I think what I would prefer over that, and maybe I'm crazy because I know it would take a while, is if you just had a skills competition for a Saturday, you had it for 3-4 hours, and again, I know it's crazy, but you have one representative from every team for every competition, and you say, all right, this guy's got the hardest shot on the Blues, Colton Parayko. Let's put him in the slapshot competition. Fastest skater. This guy is really fast. Robbie Fabry for the Detroit Red Wings. Let's put him in the fastest skater. And I think that would be a lot more fun than just, because that would really help you determine best of the best in every skill rather than having just, these guys, he made it because he's a goal scorer. Well, he's not there for passing, so let's get the best passer in there.
I think most teams have their own skills competition, don't they? Kind of for fun, like it's not a big deal
usually. I don't know if
usually.
they still do.
I know the Blues did with, at least to some degree, they had the hardest shot and something else during the outdoor game that year. The outdoor, when the rink was in Busch Stadium, they had that One Nation thing that I went to. That was kind of neat. But, I mean, I don't know. I get why people might not like it. The format or whatever is not what they enjoy. I think it's weird that people go off on it every year and actively hate it and declare that they shouldn't even have it, which is just like I'm like, that's, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Some people like it. It does promote the league. It maybe not the way you want, but not having the game at all is an awful idea. I guess, I don't know what people want. They want checking. They want people diving in front of slap shots to block shots. No. First off, nobody wants to see their players do that in a pickup game.
Right.
And I don't want my players to get hurt. And if players are doing that, more players are going to opt out because they don't want to risk injury. It's just a dumb. It's a dumb idea to think that the All-Star game should be like a real game. It never will be. It never has. Well, actually, it was a long time ago, like 50 years ago.
When it was the
Stanley Cup champions versus the All-Stars. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. It was a group of players who went up against whoever won the cup the year before.
Yeah, I just don't know what people want. I mean, it is what it is. Like you said, it's a pickup game for the fans,
right.
A friendly pickup game.
Right. If you're a hockey purist and you just want to see, you want to see fights in every game, block shots in every game.
Yeah. Well,
somebody being checked through glass every game. That's not what it is. Live with it for a weekend.
Are they against men's leagues, like no check men's leagues too? Because that's not hockey. Shouldn't even have it. If you can't check, shouldn't be playing it. That's kind of the attitude that it's kind of a weird thing.
I will say that I understand the existence of no check men's league. I firsthand witnessed as an 8-year-old why they turned the Cahokia Men's League into a no-check league when a guy got his Achilles tendon cut out from a check on the boards. Somebody jumped into him, came down, sliced his Achilles tendon. He's writhing in pain on the ice. They take his skate out, and his Achilles falls onto the ice.
Oh.
Was it Kevin Ragsdale?
No, that involved face into concrete floor.
I think Ragsdale would have taken his skate off and actively stabbed the guy with it. That's what I thought would have happened. Anyway,
Bill, were you at the Blues game on Saturday?
I was. I was there.
Patty Bass says she thinks she saw you there, or she thinks he or she saw you there.
Yeah, I was there.
She went to a game last Saturday night. Anyway.
Yeah. Went.
Ain't no big thing.
Colleague who is a former manager in my area at work, who is a former Rangers season ticket holder, had Rangers season tickets in '94 when they won the Cup.
Oh, nice.
So big Rangers fan. He was in town with his son for the weekend, and we got tickets and went to the game, and we had a great time harassing him the whole time.
I bet the end of the game was fun too.
Oh man, Jesus Christ, what is Jacob Trouba thinking?
And that's our next topic. You're losing 5-2, and it's the 5 seconds to go in the game, and you're hacking. I counted him. He slashed the shit out of Dunn 6 times, in 5 seconds. It was nuts, and I don't blame Dunn one bit for turning around and popping him in the face a few times.
Did you see the Rangers fans talk about how cheap that was by
Bulls.
Dunn and how?
No, I didn't.
I'm like,
didn't surprise
no, listen, man. I know the Blues have done some stuff that you could kind of consider questionable. I'm not going to argue with you on that. But that's just, I honestly think that we're on the other side of it now. That is other fans looking at the Blues as the best team in the NHL and finding reasons to just, they're cheating because they do this. And, I mean, he didn't do obviously he did something, but he did it because Trouba was being a fucking dick.
Trouba was being a piece of shit. And Dunn said, no, I'm not putting up with that shit. And he popped him in the face like 2 or 3 times, got him good. And good, rightfully so. I mean, that's
every bit of that coming.
Every bit. And I don't, and Trouba got, and you know what? Okay, who's the dirtier player that comes out of that? Trouba got fined. Right. Which I want to talk to you guys about, because
Trouba was fined $5,000, the maximum amount allowable under the CBA.
Yeah, I don't care about the amount of fine. The fact is, the league looked at that whole thing and found he was in the wrong, and they didn't say anything about Dunn. Now, I'm not saying that player safety is the authority. Well, they are the authority, but they're not accurate in the. Their decisions are questionable at best. But
see Zach Kassian versus Matthew Tkachuk.
Right, which we can talk about too. But that was, I don't know. But that's to be upset at Dunn in that situation when Dunn is essentially defending himself. Yeah, and that's all it is. And Fuck Trouba. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm serious. He was a piece of shit there.
I can think that sparked that whole thing was Dunn chirp Trouba for making the stupid play at the end of, what was it, Game 5 in Winnipeg when he turned the puck over.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just for whatever reason, inexplicably stood behind the Jets' net with a puck instead of moving it, allowed the Steen pinch to get the puck to
Maybe that's why he's pissed off.
to Schwartz, and Dunn had a chirp about that.
Maybe that's why he's pissed off in the series last season.
Yeah.
Didn't think about that. Yeah, but I don't care. Whatever. The Rangers game. Yeah, we won this one 5-2. I don't think we need to go over this.
Yeah, I will say that the goal that Bennington gave up at the beginning of the game was worrisome.
It was soft.
And I was like, I was ready to leave because the only other game I went to this year was the Montreal game when Jake Allen gave up that.
It's you.
Terrible,
You were the common denominator.
Yes, that terrible soft goal from wrist shot from the blue line, and I was like,
Bad
this
goaltending
isn't
just
good.
follows Bill.
So here's the deal with the end of the game, though, is that after the refs separated and the teams were kind of jawing and a little pushing and shoving and whatnots, a little brouhaha, little Donnybrook, the Blues all stood at center ice. They were told to by the official stay over here until the Rangers leave the ice. And the Rangers are like slowly leaving the ice, and a few of them don't want to. They're kind of just staring at them, and the Blues are just staring them down. You guys, I saw the still in the video, staring them down, and Bortuzzo's basically gesturing at them, get the fuck off the ice. And the whole team is just standing there at center ice, just staring them down as they leave. I'm like, that's awesome. That was just like united front. Fuck you, Rangers, get the fuck off our ice. That was great. I loved that.
Yeah, it's too bad we've already finished our season series with them.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Oh, it's
Still.
true. Wow, I forgot they played them earlier. Yeah.
Ended on a good note, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
How about the breakaway goal from Mr. Bertuzzo?
I was at
Did you guys
Gazella.
see what he said after the game?
Yeah, I didn't take kindly to my teammates.
Yeah, he said he
looks
wishes his
surprised every
teammates
time he
wouldn't act so
scores.
surprised when he
Yeah,
scores.
that's so funny. I was at Gazella in the Grove watching that game, the first part of it. Came home and watched the rest of it.
Yeah.
I saw Bortuzzo scoring a break. I'm like, that almost never happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was at Crafty Chameleon in Baldwin, a great beer bar, and everybody in the place was like, "But Bortuzzo breakaway? Like what?" It was a very shocking moment.
Out of the
among
box.
It was
fans.
it was a double minor that led up to it. So
Yeah.
it's like the Rangers, had very few sniffs on that, and you had that feeling, that they were going to do something stupid at the end of the power play, and just great pass. And I will say, from a goaltending perspective, not Lundqvist's best moment.
No.
He had some good moments in that game, but he's 37 years old at this point. Just
His comments after the game were nice, complimentary.
Yeah,
superb.
enjoyed that.
Lou Korak posted his Lundqvist comments after the game. Pay the compliment on the Blues. And Lundqvist said, "You get pretty impressed when you watch them play because it's almost not a single play where they beat themselves. They're so patient. You might think that you're holding on to pucks, but they don't give you as much in the middle, and they just wait for mistakes. They play very smart hockey, mature hockey. They just have one way to play. It doesn't matter if they're down or up a goal. They know when to chip in pucks. They know when to go to the net. It's just smartness. They win for a reason. I thought it was pretty impressive to see how poised they were all the time." I mean, I don't think you can compliment a team much more than that.
Love that
Yeah,
Henrik
that-
Lundqvist.
That was one of the best sound bites that I can remember of a player being complimentary of another team.
Yes, right.
And maybe it was, maybe you could trade for me for Cup Run if you need a goalie at $10 million a year.
Right. Yeah.
The only
Rangers might have to eat like
soundbite-
$8 million on that salary.
The only soundbite I
the
remember
Stars
from an
win.
opposing goalie that was better was when I interviewed Ryan Miller after a loss when he was with Vancouver, and I asked him what he thought. And
Vancouver.
He said, "Yeah, the Blues are they're a good team." Thanks, Ryan. Okay, have a good night. See you later. he was
doesn't
very
seem
cold
like he doesn't
at the
seem
end
like,
of the game.
He seems like a very cold interview. I mean, I don't know. He seems like a very cold individual.
Yeah, he was.
Like he's not too personable.
I don't know. I don't know if he was pissed off about the loss or if that's just who he was, but it was definitely a not very fun interview for me. I was getting about 4-word answers every time.
The Critics' Choice for Best Team in the West just lost. Again.
Right to S. Lindell, the best diver in the NHL.
Yeah. Give me 2 minutes for diving.
We've got a couple comments here. Teal Town's asking us to send them some beer because they need to drown their sorrows. Let's do that,
guess we never
guys.
did
We'll make
that,
sure
did
that
we?
happens.
No,
yeah, let's do that.
That is on our to-do list, and we keep talking about it. We need to. We're gonna send them
Let's
a care
actually
package.
make that a priority. Let's do that.
Right.
And Austin Lynch has been talking about going to the Fan Fest, and I'm going on Saturday, and Bill, you're going on Saturday as well, right?
Yeah.
And then Kurt, what about you? Are you going?
Up in the air.
Okay.
You're doing the 5K.
I'm doing the 5K.
You're the only one fit enough amongst us fat podcasters.
I'm doing the 5K
To do
with
the
my
5K.
daughter. So we're not going for speed. It's her first 5K. She's only 10, so she's been wanting to run in one of these Blues 5Ks for a while. So I asked her if she wanted to go, and she was all excited. So we're gonna jog the 5K.
I've got I've got some issues. There's no way I'd be able to do the 5K. I've working on some health issues medically that I'm not cleared to run the 5K just yet.
You got the SARS, don't you?
Yeah, well, it's the
bird flu?
A Chinese teammate, and he coughed on me, and that's what happened.
That's how you get.
It's
the gout.
okay.
That's how you get the gout. That's not.
He's my friend. I'm allowed to say that.
Swine flu.
Or you.
But I
shook
wanted to
hands
point
with
out-
Mark Rycroft and contracted whatever it is that jacket's giving off. What
There
the hell
was.
is that?
Oh my God. It looks like a bunch of floor samples from Lumber Liquidators that he put on a jacket.
That's god awful.
Jeez.
And the reason I bring that up is because I want to say if anybody is planning on going to the Fan Fest or the 5K, let us know. And if it's the 5K, Kurt will meet up with you. If it's the Fan Fest, I'm sure Bill and I would be happy to meet up with you on Saturday. So just let us know if you're planning on doing that. And obviously, you know how to contact us on Twitter, Facebook, whatever.
I will have stickers with me. So if you contact me, come by and get a sticker.
Yeah, me too. That's a good call.
I'll try to remember this.
A Blues. We'll have some Stanley Cup sticker and some Stag beer parody Blues stickers.
Yeah. So
Trying to find mine.
Let's
Here we
make
go.
sure we all have
There you
an
go. There's one of them.
understanding of how the Fan Fest thing's going to work. So I have a ticket that says it is good for 1 p.m. What does that mean? Does that mean I get into the special section? Is for an hour?
Austin said
what does
he's
that mean?
good. He's got his ticket for 11. So I don't know what that means. They can't kick you out at a certain time.
Somebody
right?
asked that question online, and they tagged the St. Louis Blues, and I don't know if they responded. So I don't know. I'm sure that's something that is on their website. No, or an email that was received from your ticket. You would think.
Yeah.
B&H Kel asks if any of us are going to the alumni game. I don't have plans to, but I still may. I haven't decided yet.
It's up in the air.
And also should mention from earlier, drawing a blank on who it was, but I saw the comment earlier. Somebody mentioned the 3-on-3 women's tournament that they're going to have here in the All-Star game and said they're very excited about that. And I am too. I think that's cool. What I would actually like to see, and maybe this is just getting nuts, is add a women's team to the overall thing. I don't know. Maybe they don't want to do that. But instead of just having a 4-team thing, maybe you have a 5-team and loser doesn't make the playoff round. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's getting too crazy. But I think that'd be fun to see the women battle the men. That'd be fun.
I mean, they would get smoked hard.
Yeah, but the guys aren't. They're not going full steam.
Maybe, but yeah.
And the
but
women might.
I think
But Kurt's a sexist.
No.
Okay, how about this?
Hey,
How about this? Just mix
here's
the women
here's the
into
deal.
the men's teams.
Do you think the women's team would beat the top men's college team?
Probably.
Depends on where you're getting the women from. Mm-hmm. Are you getting the women from like Team USA and Team
USA.
Canada?
Team USA's, yeah.
You're
women's
talking
team.
Kendall Coyne, Schofield.
Yeah, I'm talking the best women players.
Yeah. I think so.
I think
I'd like to see that. I think that would be a good
That'd be
game.
cool.
I think that'd be a better game. I think I mean, I'm not, I'm not going to go down that road anymore.
Like I said,
already
I
labeled
think
you a sexist.
Yeah.
what would actually be cool, now that I think about it, maybe you're right, maybe that's not a good call. Maybe you just put one woman on each team, and you have a female player mixed into the male teams.
That's different. Yeah. I don't hate that idea. I
think that'd
know
be
some
fun.
people who would hate that idea.
Well, I wouldn't. Seeing what Hillary Knight could do against some of these guys, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
We had a game last night. Blues beat the Ducks 4-1. Jake Allen was back in net. Coming into this game, he was 6-3-0 with a 1.92 GAA, 3 goals against or less in all of his 9 career games versus Anaheim. Coming into that game, so now he's 7-3 with a 1 point, I don't know, less, 1.8, 1.7, whatever it is. Yep, holds true, 3 goals against or less in all 10 career games against Anaheim now. So he owns Anaheim. Blues were 20-0-5 coming into the Anaheim game when scoring first. The Ducks came into this game after a 4-2 loss to the Blackhawks, and I think some thought this was going to be a game that could come up and bite the Blues, especially with how the Ducks have played in St. Louis in recent years. They were looking forward to, and they were looking to rebound from that loss to Chicago. So,
Right. They came in here in November and showed us a thing or two.
Getzlaf had 11 points in his last 10 games versus the Blues, but the Blues held him pointless in this game. Ducks had won their last 4 games in St. Louis, and the Blues hadn't beaten the Ducks since 2017. So, yeah, the Blues had their problems with the Ducks lately.
I think Berube let that one marinate in the locker room.
Blues scored first. Steen got his 3rd of the season on just a nice shot. You know what? It's funny because Steen now has all of a sudden gotten hot. No goals in his first 28 games of the season. He has 3 in his last 3 and 7 points in his last 7 games.
Right. And the play where he scores, I don't know. Like John Gibson had such a hard time tracking.
He
that
did.
puck.
He did not know where the rebound was.
Yeah.
He left the net open, but
Yeah.
I think Steen pounced on it nicely.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, the shot from Bortuzzo doesn't get to him because he doesn't feel it, and he sets himself up for a rebound out in front of him.
It's deflected.
Doesn't realize it's all the way over on the boards, and I mean that looked like a pickup game goal if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, a goalie who was either just didn't care.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm not gonna. Oh, you want me to get up for it? I'm not gonna. I'll slide across in a second.
You got a blocker to it.
Yeah.
Just not enough to
Right.
put
No,
it over
he
the
did.
net.
He did. Once he saw where it was, he gave the oh shit, lunge save, but couldn't get it. And aside from maybe 5 minutes of play, maybe through the first period, where the Blues got a little sloppy and loose and allowed the Ducks to tie the game, I mean, they kind of got back in the groove after that, flexed their muscle, and showed the Ducks who was the better team. It was nice to this team. And I think you commented on this, Jeff, on Twitter. Said something along the lines of how they forechecked was just impressive as hell, and it's just a joy to watch this team play. And they did this against the Ducks. They dominated play for stretches.
When they're on their game, and we talk about this on the show constantly for the past year, when they're on their game and they're forechecking and playing the game we know they can, there's no one in the world better. They dominate teams. They kind of bully them into turning the puck over, either in the defensive zone or the neutral zone, and they just don't let the other team's offense get set. And I think early in the second period, you saw Anaheim get a couple chances early, and I think the Blues kind of puffed up their chests and said, "You know what, guys? we're better than these guys. Let's just bring it to them. Let's not let them get these chances anymore. And they just dominated the rest of that second period. Obviously scored a couple goals, but not just that, but didn't give Anaheim anything. They just couldn't start any offense because the Blues were just all over them every chance they got.
They pepper the Ducks in waves with offensive zone pressure, and it's fun to watch. Goals by Bozak, his 11th. Schwartz, his 16th. Barbashev, his 7th. Just sealed the deal. Berube, after the game, said, we just played our game and wore them down. Everyone is doing the same thing, and we just took over the game. There are times here and there that you adjust for certain things, but by and large, we just go out there and play our game. Our game stays the same. So it's great because I guess it's a confidence thing where you know that you don't have to necessarily adjust to beat the other team. Your system and your players and your game is good enough where the other team is going to have to try and adjust to beat you. He also said feels like we're better this year than last year. These are all comments in the post-game press conference. Puck possession was key, he said, biggest reason for the Blues' success. They're defending harder, not giving up the blue line. Back checking has been solid. First period was sloppy last night. Execution wasn't great. But puck management versus teams lower in the standings has been good, which the Ducks supply there.
Right, and I talked about that a lot with people at work over the last couple of days. Like, in previous seasons, the Blues seem to play down to the opponent. So you get to these games, back to back against Rangers and Ducks, teams definitely on the lower end of the standings in their respective conferences, and the Blues, in previous seasons may have laid eggs in these games. But definitely the Rangers game, it was men against boys for large stretches of that game. Yeah. And I think it was the same in the game last night.
Yeah, you looked at it kind of playing off what you just said. Was it the Bozak goal that they caused the turnover and they had a nice passing play and he's the one that finished it off?
Oh, God.
Yeah. And it's like that kind of play.
McEachran.
Yeah.
McEachran.
And that kind of play in the past, McEachran, yes.
McEachran.
That kind of play in the past, we look at it and you say, okay, that was great passing. Oh, and they just couldn't finish.
Yeah.
And every single time now it seems like when they cause a turnover in that part of the ice, it's in the back of the other team's net. And that's just, even a year and a half ago, that's not what we saw. It was, God, if they could just capitalize on these chances, they would be a great NHL team, and that's just what we're seeing right now.
And Robert Thomas, how good has he been? And the thing is that how good he's been this season, and how good he's looked at times. He should only get better.
Right,
he's still 20 years old.
Right, and he still hasn't seen a large swath of time where he's playing center.
Yeah,
he dominates.
So
the game.
Good.
His possession, just when he gets on the puck, something in the offensive zone, something happens every time, and
he grabs the puck, and as soon as he like you said, something happens. He grabs the puck. He's constantly spinning, turning, looking, and he'll pass. I mean, he knows where everyone is, and he's thinking 2 or 3, 4 strides ahead of everybody else.
Right.
Where everybody's going. He knows where people are going to be.
Right. He's not to say that he'll have the same numbers over the career, but he's that elite offensive, IQ like Gretzky, thinking that 3 or 4 plays ahead, and has the ability to make those passes. I mean, there have been several times this season where you've heard the broadcaster say, "Well, Thomas makes a great pass, and Bozak or whoever is not ready for it because they don't expect him to be able to pull it off."
It's great because you don't see. We haven't seen a whole lot of that kind of stuff. That level of flair in playmaking. We haven't seen it in a long time. Oates kind of to some degree. Oates wasn't as flashy with the puck. He was just a good passer.
Right.
He could hit tape to tape. But Thomas is fast. It was mentioned. I think I don't know if it was Berube said this or not, but the fastest player on the team with the puck is Thomas. which is interesting because and when he gets in the offensive zone, his feet are constantly moving, and he's fun to watch.
Right.
He's gonna be fun to watch for a long time.
Right. Defenders peel off of him, give him space because they don't want to try to commit to a hit that they're not going to complete. And he makes the best of it.
It's funny because I have a friend who's a big Ducks fan, and he's been commenting about how they kind of relied on a lot of their young guys to step in this season. Sam Stone, or not Sam Steele, Max Comtois, Kasha. I can't remember Kasha's first name, but I always want to call him Oleg Kavasha, but that's not correct.
Right. That's what I kept thinking last night too.
Yep. But he's been saying, that that's who they're relying on to kind of bring this team into mediocrity even again. And he pointed out last night on Twitter that he sees a guy like Robert Thomas has just been able to step in with the Blues. I mean, obviously, he had last year as a rookie season, but already in his second year, he's looking like a guy who's played the NHL for 5 years. And he says he just really hopes that, the game clicks to these guys like it did for Robert Thomas. And, at the end of last season, we started seeing better play from Robert Thomas, and he's hoping it's going to happen to his Ducks players. And, I just told him, I'm like, man, I hate to say it, but Robert Thomas is just a special player.
Yeah.
I don't think you find players like that on trees. And, these guys are going to be great, I'm sure, Comtois, Steele. But, I just don't know if they're even going to be at the level Robert Thomas is at right now in a year because he's just playing out of his mind right now.
Buffalo fans were pretty active the other day during the Blues Sabres game when they basically said that we should have held out for Robert Thomas when we traded O'Reilly, and I wonder if the trade would have happened. My instinct is to say no, but I wonder if Buffalo was like, we are not doing the trade unless it's Thomas. I wonder if they do it.
I've always kind of believed, and this is maybe just my own speculation, things I've read, but I've always kind of believed that that's why the Blues stepped back, Doug Armstrong stepped back and said, okay, then we're just going to sign Tyler Bozak and we're fine because we're not giving you Robert Thomas.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, that's my own speculation, I'm sure. Maybe something we should ask Jeremy, but no way. I don't see the Blues ever making that trade.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't know quite how good he was going to be then, but they thought he was going to be very, very good. I'm not sure if they were 100% on it, but
right,
like they are now.
The thing for me with Thomas is when is he going to get his chance with Tarasenko? Or if it's not Tarasenko,
next season,
the guy that can put the puck in the net consistently, because
Yeah.
Thomas is the best setup man the Blues have had since Adam Oates.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe that.
Better
He's
than Turgeon?
the most. Yeah. I mean, he's that's a good comparison. I mean, yeah, maybe he's the this generation's Turgeon. But he's so much younger. Like we got Turgeon after he was
Montreal and New York,
and Buffalo.
He was
already had his way
he
with
was a
him.
great player.
He was his fourth team here.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
If you get Thomas here over the course of his career, God, that guy's gonna be he's gonna be the Bernie Federico level player.
That's the best time to be a Blues fan.
God, yeah.
So 9 straight wins after this game.
On home ice.
On home ice, right. 9 straight home wins. Ties the franchise record set in 91. They can break the team record with a 10 straight win. Home win on Wednesday, tomorrow, versus Brian Elliott and the Philadelphia Flyers, who are playing, they're playing well.
It's got to be Elliott, too,
It is,
Carter Hart
because
just went on the IR today.
They said that Elliott was getting the start anyway. He was scheduled to start the game anyway. But yeah, Hart he hurt something. Did they say what it was? Lower, upper? That's all they probably said.
I think I saw lower body.
Yeah, but as a wise man once said, and this is a play on the word heart, a bruise on the leg is a long way from the heart, candy ass.
Going into tonight's game, tonight's Dallas and Avalanche game, the Blues had an 11-point lead on Dallas. Now it is 9 because Dallas won tonight in OT, and they had a 12-point lead on Colorado, which is now 11 since the Dallas won in overtime. So, and the Blues, the Blues are quickly running away with the conference.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because it's not a games played thing. It's
right. It's not a games in hand thing, but
no, it's because the Blues have played 2 more. Well, 1 more, I guess now.
It feels great, but after watching what the Blues did, climbing the standings last year, does it really matter?
No,
like you said, it's a great time to be a Blues fan. These are great things to point out, but
I'm just saying.
It's not just the Blues. It's the fact you look at what Tampa Bay did last year. They ran away with the NHL and lost.
And
didn't win one playoff game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and they did not get goaltending either in the playoffs. That was a big deal. Gunnarsson was activated today. Parayko is on the IR, retroactive to January 2nd.
That's an important note because he can come back anytime now.
Right. I think people, when they saw that Parayko went on the IR, people they freaked out. But no, it's retroactive to the 2nd. So that's what, 12 days ago. So he can come off pretty soon.
But
that just gives them gives the Blues a little flexibility to call someone else up if they want. A little salary cap management, no big deal.
Because Gunnarsson was activated, so
right, and I guess doesn't force the issue on making a decision on Nico Mikkola.
Right,
but I wanted to ask you guys about that.
Okay,
because he got a lot of love from the broadcast last night.
Yeah.
But there was one play in particular in the second period where the Ducks were pressing, and there were Bortuzzo had pinched behind the net, and there was another forward down there. In the game against the Rangers, there was a play where both Bouwmeester and Falk, they're paired together. I don't like them as a pairing, which they've been since Parayko's out, but they both pinched on the player, made a great pass between the two of them, wide open guy in front of the net. And in the Ducks game, Bortuzzo's behind the net. I forget who the forward is that came down to pinch. And Mikkola, you could see the thought process. And you could see him look over his shoulder and see there's a guy coming down the slot. And he just backs off and takes away the guy's space. And the way he throws his body around out there, cuts people down, has that great long stick, that great long reach, is a great gap closure guy. He really is right now. He is playing very good NHL level hockey, and I would hate to see him get sent down. And as much as Carl Gunnarsson and the taking a piss story from the Stanley Cup, as great as that is. Right now, I want Mikkola in the lineup because his hockey IQ seems to be off the charts, and he's an effective two-way defenseman, and he is just another reason to be so much more hopeful about this team going forward in the next few years.
Yeah, I've liked him. It's been 3 games, so. It is a grain of salt and all, but yeah, no, I agree with you. I think I've pleasantly happy with the way he's played. I've liked the way he's looked. He looks like he fits and belongs. So assuming he keeps that up. Now this is interesting because this creates options for the Blues. Deadline time. Let's say this may maybe if the option to acquire a depth defenseman for the playoffs, like we did last year with Alzado, maybe we won't have to do something like that this year if we have a guy like Mikkola who can be plugged in if need be. So that would maybe allow us to do something else if we wanted to.
Right. If Tarasenko's not coming back, do you
Depth
go out
scoring.
and do you go get a Tyler Toffoli?
Yeah.
Do you get a guy like that? I don't know.
What do you do?
Yeah.
I mean,
this
is going to be
opens up
interesting.
options, right?
If they keep playing like this and they keep winning, and it's like, do you make a move at the deadline? I mean, I assume they'll probably tweak and get a depth something. I guess, but
Right, and I think that'll be a big talking point for us going forward. Is what is the the thought as far as Tarasenko's of the possibilities of him coming back for even the playoffs, let alone a stretch run.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he's
Right.
back for the stretch run.
Right.
I'd be happy with
don't-
playoffs.
Right. I
Be happy with playoffs.
honestly, with as great as this team has been about next man up, and we haven't missed him.
No,
And-
that's
and-
crazy. Well, the offense dropped off after he left.
Right.
But
we
we picked it up in other
right.
areas,
And
and
they-
now the offense has returned.
Right. They've adopted.
So, right, sure.
So I would much rather see Tarasenko take as much time as he needs
I think-
to become 100% healthy.
Same thing with
he's
Parayko right
still
now.
he's still on the upswing of his career. He hasn't hit that crest. And I think when it comes to Pietrangelo, he's the guy that you worry about. This is the crest of his career, and do you want to give him, like JR was saying, do you go as far as $9 million to keep him here for the rest of his career? I think he's crested. From here on out, he'll have a couple of great solid years, but
Pietrangelo?
Yeah.
Well,
I still think they
know-
totally made the right move not bringing Backus back for his demands.
Oh God, yeah. But it's funny because the number he threw out for Pietrangelo was 8.25, 8.5 maybe.
Right.
And it was funny because I'm like, that is like, I do believe that's the number I 7 to 8, 7.5. I think I said, or no.
That from a Blues perspective,
I
from a
said
Blues fan perspective,
I think-
8.25 is the right number.
I think I said 8 or something.
Yeah.
I was very, very close to what Jeremy said and I was very, I was questioning the people that said that the Blues need to give him 10. I'm like 10. I said that's not. They can't do 10.
Toronto would. Well, the Toronto media and the Toronto fans would give him 10 in a heartbeat.
Right. The Toronto media doesn't think there's a salary cap.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that was interesting. I was happy to hear that Rutherford thought that he's well below the $10 million idea for the Blues, and I hope that Pietrangelo's not expecting the Blues to maybe come close to 10 million because I don't see that at all.
But yeah, I mean,
But Parayko too, with not rushing him back, going back to that conversation.
right.
They're playing very well. There's no point. They could let him rest through the All-Star break. We're off for 12. Was it 12 days? 12
Right.
days?
We have the entire week off around before the All-Star.
It's
So,
where's
yeah.
my calendar here? There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5, 6,
Play
7, 8
Colo-
days. 8 days
Right.
off.
They play Colorado 2:00 on Saturday, and then they are off until Vancouver. West Coast swing to come off the All-Star break.
Yeah, and that game against Colorado before the break, that should be a good one.
Yeah.
In Colorado. And you got your Vancouver who's playing well. You got your Calgary, Edmonton. Yeah. Let's see. Next up for the Blues, we talked about it. Philadelphia tomorrow night. Elliott will be in net. Looking forward to it. You worried about the break at all? Like being off 8 days straight, screwing with the team, on a roll right now.
No.
Nah.
All right.
No.
The fact that everyone has the break, that doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, and you want the guys to take a rest, go somewhere sunny. Don't do anything more physically strenuous than play some, 36 holes of golf in a day. Go sit on a beach, enjoy your life. You've earned it at this point, right?
Crappy goalie says $8 million for 8 years, too long.
Possibly too long, but
like we talked about though. I mean, and we've talked about it, and JR talked about it. But you get the term because the window's now, and you load up for your window. And
right.
You worry about 4 or 5 years from now later.
Right, and a year from now, one of those guys is going to Seattle.
I almost asked JR about the whole after because we were talking about Falk, and I almost asked him. I said because the first couple weeks the Falk was here, the first handful of games, he wasn't playing very well. And we talked about it in the show. It was like he needs to be better. He's a better player than this, and he's not playing that well. I don't think we were panicking. We're just like, it was just like, he just needs to be better. I think that's not a groundbreaking statement. It was just kind of just an obvious thing. But then there were people that were saying that the Blues have the option to expose him in the draft. And I was going to ask JR about that, about the conversations about leaving him exposed in the draft. But I think Falk's settling in nicely. I think he's been much better. So
yeah, I mean, you expect the cap to go up a little bit next year. So Bouwmeester probably not going to bring him back for another year.
You can't. I don't know how can you?
Steen's not going to be at the same money. Jake Allen won't be here. That there should be enough money to have the three big right defensemen back with this team for a couple of years. But if they do have cap issues, and kudos to Doug Armstrong for managing to this. You have the expansion draft as a way out of these contracts.
I'm looking at Steen's here. There's Steen's. Yeah, he's next year is last year on his contract, 2021. And Bouwmeester, this is his last year. Yeah. Okay. Well, and then Falk just goes off the charts. Yeah, Falk and Schwartz, Shen. Any other comments we can read in the chat here, Jeff?
Oh, there's a ton. Crappy goalie responding to what you said. If they give him the term, I think he'd give on the AAV. BH Kell says 6+ for 7 years. Friend Scuba says STL Elliots versus the Allen lovers. So he's saying start Allen tomorrow, which I don't know about that. Let's see. We got a couple more questions here. People asking about how much longer Falk has. Well, he signed that extension after, and it doesn't kick in until after this year.
Right. He's
so
here. Falk is
eight
here.
More years then.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's off the chart here. I don't have the. It goes
to
20
8 more years.
Yeah, it is. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And cap friendly only shows the next 6. So it's so he's 26, 7. So it's 27, 28 is the last season he'd been in a contract then.
And then Austin Lynch says, I hope if we re-sign Pietrangelo, he won't be a bust after getting a good contract like Erik Karlsson. That's a little different situation, I think, because Karlsson plays a much different game. I think I put the blame more on the Sharks than I do on Karlsson on that contract. I think just knowing the type of game he plays, the punishment he takes from opposing forwards and even other opposing defensemen, his shelf life of being a top caliber defenseman is much shorter than a guy like Petro, who's not skating it through the neutral zone every chance he has. He's moving the puck off. He's using a good team game, whereas Karlsson's a guy that learned carry the puck, create the offense yourself, and that's going to be what leads us to success. That's not the way Petro plays, so I think it's a little different. Let's see. We've got Eck is horrible from Scuba. Yeah. I think our friends at Teal Town, if they're still listening, they would agree. Falk seems decent to me from Scuba, and I agree. I think we all agree that he's a good guy to fit with this team if he can keep what he's been doing lately, keep that going. Great fit for the Blues. It's just a matter of, for those saying, well, that's going to replace Petro, again, I think that's a completely different conversation. I don't think that's what he was brought in here to do.
When's the end of Vlad's contract? That's from Austin Lynch. He's under contract through 22-23. So he's got 3 more seasons after this one.
Scuba seems to think Petro has 6 years left in him. I hope you're right.
Then that would mean an 8-year contract and be fine. I'd be good with that.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
Josh Webster says Elliott is going to have neck problems from looking behind him after tomorrow night.
We've played him since, right? One time?
I think we have. I
thought
when
we played
he
him
was
one
with
time.
Calgary.
I thought we played him one time, and I don't think he fared too well.
Yeah, it was. He did. Jeff's right. It was a game he played
Calgary?
for Calgary.
Yep.
Yeah, because I do believe the game last year with Philadelphia was with Bennington, the first start, the shutout. I want to say that was either Neuvert or Carter Hart was in net for them.
I can't remember.
Lights sound again. Scuba. Hey Bill, Liverpool has 5 of the 11 team of the season starters. Guessing you know what that means.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah. So for Scuba and I, at this point, this is the greatest time to be a Blues fan. Well, it might not be the greatest time to be a Liverpool fan. God damn, Liverpool is fucking good. They might not lose a game this season.
How many games did they play?
38.
38.
38.
That's a
And
new state record.
They are.
That's a new state record.
They haven't lost at home in over a year.
Wow.
And so far they haven't in league play at least, they haven't given up a loss for the season. They've drawn a couple, but they look unstoppable. It's much watch soccer.
Okay.
Austin Lynch is missing some of the segments that we skipped over today. And we should at least run through these pretty quick. Official beers of the episode, ? Today in Blues history, ? Well, let's do the beer real quick. I am all done with mine. In fact, I was done a while ago. Again, I am finishing off my Mary Berry Ale from Schlafly. So I think I've had this on the show for the last 3 weeks or so. Finished off what I had left tonight.
What'd you have, Bill?
My beverage of the moment is cucumber mint sparkling water from the good folks at Good Gather.
Couldn't gather.
Nice.
No, my beer of the show tonight. Actually, I brought out a good one. The Abraxas Mexican chocolate stout from Perennial.
Nice.
It is a coveted beer in St. Louis beer circles. A nice spicy Mexican chocolate stout.
Perennial made the top breweries in the nation.
Yeah.
St. Louis had a few in there.
Yeah, Perennial, Second Shift, and there's
Urban Chestnut.
Urban Chestnut,
Which I don't agree with.
Yeah,
but
it depends.
I love Second Shift. I love Perennial.
It depends on if you like German brew style.
I'm not a huge fan. They have a couple beers I enjoy, but overall, I just think that I don't tend to drink their stuff. But whatever happened to their chocolate milk stout they had a few years ago? They stopped making it.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I don't know if they're. I did make it to
Or chocolate stout.
Yeah, the tap room that they have, not the Grove one, the other one, Midtown, and enjoyed a couple of thrills and a cigar out on the patio a couple weeks back for a work Christmas party. It was nice.
Mine is Four Hands chocolate milk stout. I usually have the Absence of Light, which is the peanut butter chocolate milk stout, but this is their flagship almost. This time their fall flagship chocolate milk stout, which one of the better cans, one of the better labels in St. Louis on these cans. It's a solid design.
It's today in Blues history, real quick. I'll roll through the first one. We got 3 of them here, but I don't know. I was going to say we could all take one, but I don't think Bill has the. I don't think he has it in front of him. That's fine. I'll take the first one.
He's got it. He's got it.
Oh, there we go. All right, I'll take the first one just because this. And the reason I say we should do these because this first one relates to tomorrow night pretty well. 1:14, so January 14th, 2016. Brian Elliott gets pulled by Ken Hitchcock, smashes his stick in the runway, especially the sticks in the runway. And Jordan Binnington makes his NHL debut versus the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yep.
So that's a pretty big moment in Blues history.
It
if you really
is.
think
And
about it.
I don't think that was talked about too much today.
No.
His very first NHL minutes were, and he gave up a goal on a few shots or something like that. It wasn't that great of a.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I
less
remember a
than
breakaway where
remarkable.
he just like watched the guy skate in and shoot, and he didn't even move.
It was like the
I remember
smallest.
thinking,
we talked
oh,
about that. Like
no.
the smallest of sample sizes is what it was. Yeah, he played
Yep.
like not
Yeah.
even a full like the he. I think he played like 12 minutes or something and got like 4 or 5 shots and 1
Yeah.
goal against. It was
Yeah,
terrible.
definitely. The only thing about that moment that portended the future was Elliott not being in the Blues' long-term plans,
Right.
and getting replaced by the younger dude.
You want the second one, Bill?
Sure. January 14th, 1990. So I was in 8th grade at this point. Brett Hull recorded his 4th career hat trick in the same arena where his father's jersey was retired. St. Louis Blues came back from a 5-1 deficit to tie, only to lose 6-5 versus the Winnipeg Jets.
And I bet you a lot of people thought that they were going to say Chicago with the retired Hull jersey.
The WHA, Winnipeg
Right.
Jets, where Bobby Hull took his racist shit to get
Yeah.
some WHA
Do they
money.
Racist
do they
Nazi
still
Hitler
do
had
they
some good
still
ideas.
honor? Do they still honor the retired numbers from the old Winnipeg team in Winnipeg?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know if they do or not. I'm going to try to look that up while we wrap up the show here.
The last today in Blues history, courtesy of the @STL Blues History Twitter account, January 14th, 1998. St. Louis Blues announced the establishment of the 14 Fund in honor of Doug Wickenheiser. Wick was late for the pregame ceremony, and the ceremony had to be postponed. Oops. And speaking of which, it has been said that the 14
Right.
banner
Yeah.
has been
missing.
taken down.
Yeah.
It hasn't been
And-
there all season.
Right. And it was STL Blues History who
Yeah.
was leading the inquest.
I'm like, what? That's troublesome. Why?
yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I get, okay, well, maybe it was damaged or dirty or something. Like, why has it been gone all season? I mean, why not get a new one and then replace it or something? That's it's weird to me. I don't understand this. I need answers.
I think we need some crack investigative journalism.
Yeah, the 14th.
Somebody on this.
You can't honor a number, can you? Unless it comes out that he was like a molester of children or something.
And I don't think that's going to be the case.
No, I'm saying, but that's,
He
that's
was
the
a
only
victim
reason.
He was a victim of the cancers.
I understand. I know that.
Right.
But I'm just saying that
No.
you wouldn't honor a number.
Right. And so who was the last Blue to wear 14? Was it Eric Boganicki?
I can look it
I think
up.
that's right, actually. Wait a minute. Kevin Dolman. I don't remember, but I feel like it's Kevin Dolman.
I thought he wore 38.
If I got that right, I'm going to just... Maybe you're
Okay.
right.
14, the last player. Dolman did not wear it. Boganicki, last player to wear it. 0102.
I was
was going to say Courtnall, but that was before Boganicki.
right because it was Todd Ellick, Kevin Miller.
Yeah.
That may be the Kevin you were thinking of. Ponder.
Paul
Oh,
Cavallini.
Yeah.
Paul Cavallini.
Bill Root.
I don't. But Bill Root was. I can't remember him playing here, but he played for the Maple Leafs in the mid '80s. One of the games that Ponder put up on YouTube, the Blues versus Leafs in '86, in the Campbell Conference.
67.
Yeah, Bill Root was a key player in that series.
Oh, that one. Yeah, 86. Sorry, you're right. So I looked up. I did not see anything on the Jets website about retired numbers. But then I thought, wait a minute. You said Bobby Hull's number 9 was retired by the organization. So I thought,
Yeah.
do they have a number 9 right now? And I looked, and they do. Andrew Kopp wears number 9.
Yep.
So I guess that means they do not honor the old retired numbers.
Which technically is true, is accurate. I mean,
That's probably correct. I think that's fine.
Technically speaking.
If you think about
If you think about it, really. I got nothing else, guys.
It's been a good show.
Has been a good show.
2 hours and
Long show.
15 minutes.
Long show.
You know what's funny is we say constantly all the time, one of us will be like, the show needs to be shorter tonight, guys. I got something going in the morning, or I'm tired. And we're like, okay, yeah, we'll make sure it's shorter. Usually those ones go a little longer.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. And I knew with Rutherford on, I thought that it would go longer, but I thought we were doing really good on time for a while, and then it just kind of the last bit of the show kind of just took a while.
We spiraled.
Yeah, we did. So, oh
It
well.
happens.
We'll do better next time.
Well, when you're the original Blues Hockey Podcast, often imitated, sometimes impregnated, that's just going to happen.
That'll wrap up episode 48 of season 8 of the original St. Louis Blues Hockey Podcast. Let's Go Blues Radio. Thanks for listening, and thanks to those who participated in the YouTube chat, and thanks to Jeremy Rutherford again for joining us. That was a lot of fun and very interesting. We hope you guys enjoyed the show as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. For Jeff Ponder and Bill Day, I'm Kurt Price. Until next time, everyone, let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.
Party all the time. Party all the time.
What?
The Chiefs are at home tonight against Cyanosport at the War Memorial at 8. Good seats are still available.
A look at sports.
I think that went very well.
Thank you for listening to Let's Go Blues Radio. Now take off, hosers.
Well, there's 90 minutes of your life you'll never get back. Sorry.
St. Louis Blues, St. Louis Blues. Have you heard the news about our St. Louis Blues? They've only just begun, they're on their way to number 1. Now there's no more blues for our St. Louis Blues. The Blues are on the ice.